Well, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario is asking the province for guidance on how to handle homeless encampments. And for more on this, we're joined live by AMO Policy Director Lindsay Jones. Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsay. Exactly what specifically are you asking for in how to deal with the situation?
Thanks. Well, what we're really looking for is for the province to engage in what's become an untenable solution in communities across the province. We are in crisis proportions when it comes to a lack of deeply affordable housing, a lack of shelter spaces, a lack of addiction supports and mental health supports. And we need the province's help to help us deal with and take action with the crisis.
So do you want those encampments cleared?
I think that there is a need to find permanent solutions and permanent housing for folks. But at the same time, it is true that normalizing encampments is not a sustainable situation for communities anywhere.
Well, there are many advocacy groups that advocate for those encampments. They feel that those individuals should have a right to essentially live in public parks. And on the flip side of this conversation, you have many concerned residents who are not only concerned for their safety and security, but these spaces are no longer free, especially for their children and pets. What kind of, I guess, reaction have you gotten when it comes to addressing some of those issues?
It's a complex situation. It's true. It is definitely the case that those people in encampments need to be met with compassion and provide the same level of support and service with a level of dignity that any other resident deserves. But it's also the case that, as you point out, there are long-term and broad impacts to having encampments on public lands. There's impacts from an economic perspective in communities across the province. Downtowns are really experiencing significant impacts. There's impacts from a social perspective and from an ability to feel safe in some of these spaces. So in a number of communities, a lot of these encampments have now been around for a couple of years, and residents are looking to municipalities to solve the problem.
Well, one of the issues that is constantly being talked about is obviously the addiction and mental health crisis that so many of these unhoused people are dealing with. And there's a lot of criticism from residents about these so-called safe injection sites, and that is essentially keeping people on these drugs rather than treating them. And I'm wondering if the AMO thinks that there's any correlation between the amount of encampments that we have in our city that continue to grow, and if there's any correlation to many of these injection sites that are near those parks.
Well, the opioid crisis itself is another complicated and just devastating crisis that's playing out in communities across Ontario. Over 2,500 people died in Ontario last year from opioid overdoses. The AMO really sees harm reduction as an important part of a multifaceted approach to the opioid crisis. There's a lot of evidence that safe consumption sites not only save lives, but also reduce crime and reduce budgetary pressures on both hospital waiting rooms and police and ambulance response. So AMO thinks that we need big action on homelessness, we need big action on opioids, and we need the provincial government to step up and show some leadership.
Lindsay Jones, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.